Now I'm going to base coat all of these wall pieces using the earth tone medium color. You'll have to thin this down just a little bit to get it down into the cracks. But you know it's not going to be critical if you don't hit every crack, because that stain is going to get down and soak into everywhere. So if you miss a few cracks or places, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Now for those of you who don't like to base coat this way, you can also, if you want, just spray paint a base coat of some kind in. You need to base coat it so the stain doesn't just soak into the plaster, because if you don't do anything to this wall, the stain is just going to soak in and be really dark, and you're not going to see any detail at all. So you have to base coat it with something. These are three different kind of spray paints that I've tried. All of them work fairly well. This is a Krylon Almond, this is a Krylon Pebble color, and this is a Rust-Oleum. They call it Sand, but it's like one of the camouflage colors. This one probably, I think, worked probably about the best if you're going to base coat it this way. I do have to say, and I'll show you the results of the color test after I get done with the demonstration here, that for some reason, using this color, the color came out richer and better than the other colors. These colors ended up coming out really similar, and the finished wall was a little more drab. The color wasn't quite as vibrant on the brick, and I can't really tell you why. I just found that the color I liked the best personally is this one. Now you might get done with this and you might decide that, well, the color is too vibrant. I want a dull brick. Well, if that's the case, spray painting these on will probably do fine. One word of warning, that if you spray paint the base coat instead, be sure that you get a flat or a satin and spray it just a little bit. Don't spray it till you get a big, thick, glossy coat on there, because if you get a big, thick, glossy undercoat, then the stain that you put on is going to be glossy as well, and the brick's going to look a little weird if it's glossy. You'll have to hit it again with, Tester's dull coat or something to dull it back down. Now for painting on the base coat, I'm using about a 3/4 inch wide, a fairly stiff bristled brush, because you want to be able to jam this thing in and get it down into the cracks. And notice I've got a rubber glove on my left hand, because I got to hold the piece while I'm painting it, and you will get paint all over your hand if you don't put a rubber glove on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip it in. Once again, like I said, the paint color here I have thinned a little bit with water to help get it down into the cracks. So you don't have to be super careful with this. Just jam it in everywhere into all the details. But if there's places you miss, it's not going to be a big deal, because we are going to use the shoe polish on top of it later. Now these door pieces, these are the ones, they're a little more fragile, so you might want to be careful when you're painting them on. This paint will kind of soak into the plaster a little bit, and if you're using Aleene's tacky glue like I do, it might soften the piece up a little bit, but these are pretty light, so I don't think you're going to have too much problem with this thing falling apart in your hand when you put the base coat on. And just, take your time and put some music on in the background, and just kind of enjoy putting it on. When you get to the windows, jam it down into the windows really well. When you get done painting this on, take a look to see if there's any big thick drips on it. I'm really not getting much, because this is dry dental stone, and it will kind of suck up that it'll suck up that paint pretty good. But if you get blobs of paint, jab at them, scrape the excess off onto a container, and then jab them, scrape the excess off on a container, and then when you're done with it, just simply set it aside and work on the next piece. Now at this point I've got a base coat on all the pieces, and what you want to do is, after you put the base coat on, go back and check every piece. Take a look at it, look at the sides, look at the top, look under the arches, look around, because there's always going to be some places that you missed. And while you still got paint on your brush and you got everything out, just take every piece and just take one last look over at it to make sure that all the parts of it are completely covered with paint.